Her Majesty the Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland has a claim that few on earth can make. She is, of course, the leader of the Church of England, which makes her the Christian God's representative on earth. But she is also, though she may not know it, descended from a Germanic god. The story begins in the 8th century. There were 8 major Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in the British Isles at this time. Of these 8, there are 6 royal lineages: Kent, Essex, Northumbria, East Anglia, Mercia, and Wessex, that trace their lineage backwards to a figure named Woden. Since 6 royal lineages did, it must be the case that Woden was a powerful warlord who reigned in the period from about 370 to 390 in modern-day Denmark. Since 6 royal lineages traced themselves back to him, he must have had a lot of children, and when his children left to go to Britain to defend or to raid the British kings, they had inherited his fighting skill, and they quickly rose to the top of their social hierarchies. Hengist in Kent was one of these warlords who came over from modern Denmark, and Bede identifies him as the son of Witgisl, who was the son of Witter, who was the son of Wector, who was the son of Woden. The strange thing about Woden, though, is that he didn't exist in 4th century Denmark. In fact, he didn't exist at all. He is, as many of you have already worked out, the Anglo-Saxon equivalent of the Norse pantheon's leader, Odin. When Anglo-Saxons first came to Britain, they believed in a pantheon very similar to the Norse pantheon. Individuals would pledge their allegiance to a god of the pantheon who expressed features that they wanted to see and emphasise within themselves. For kings and warlords, Woden was the obvious choice. The poem Maxims I describes him as the Allwalder, or All-Ruler, and through assembling 9 twigs of glory, likely enacting magical runes, Woden managed to cut a dragon into 9 pieces. As a dragon slayer, and the ruler of all, he was an ideal god for a king to attest his close relationship to. In 596, Ethelbert, King of Kent, had been converted to Christianity. It is written, and likewise we imagine it, as though Ethelbert immediately dropped his pagan beliefs and began worshipping a different god entirely. But for the church to rely on this conversion method would be ineffective. If the church simply came and told Ethelbert that his worship was entirely wrong, then it would not be a very welcome piece of news. Instead, the church coerced individuals. They accepted the brunt of their paganistic ways, and they allowed them to keep the sentiment of their belief, whilst channeling their belief towards a Christian method of worship. This is shown in the many modern British places that hold the name Woden. While these were sites of worship of Woden, they eventually became Christian places of worship. From a king's perspective, for Woden to not be real is a great shock. To know that they can no longer claim a special relationship with who they thought was their affiliated god would be unthinkable. Instead, they reason, he was a real figure at some point, perhaps a saint, and the king must be instead descended from him. For Woden as an individual, this probably meant an acceptance that he was, at some point, a real figure who must now be dead, but all along had been working in a Christian framework to assist the warlord. This way, they could still tell stories and legends of Woden, and it wouldn't go inherently against their new Christian worldview. Their right to rule was again unmatched. So, in the 10th century, for every Anglo-Saxon king, Woden was their ancestor. What does this mean for the Queen? The Queen is a direct descendant, through a few twists and turns, of William the Conqueror, who was, a conqueror who conquered England from Harold Godwinson in 1066. Harold and William were distant cousins, related through King Canute from 1016, who claimed the throne through Ethelred the Unready, marrying Ethelred's wife after Ethelred had died. Ethelred was himself the great-great-grandson of Alfred the Great, who, through the very messy world of early medieval politics, is descended from Cerdic. Cerdic, the first king of Wessex, who was obviously, like Hengist, the descendant of Woden. Therefore, Queen Elizabeth II is the direct descendant of the Germanic god Woden.